Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Underneath the Hood. I'm Dave Martin, the owner of Martin's Auto Repair in Central Phoenix.
I'm Glen Hayward, the proud owner of Goodworks Auto Repair in sunny Tempe, Arizona.
And I'm Lee Weatherby with Accurate Automotive in the heart of Mesa.
And together, we represent 140 years of combined automotive experience.
Our goal is to change the perception of our auto repair industry by going behind the scenes and underneath the hood.
And we hope to share with you what it's like to own a small business and give you a perspective from an insider's point of view.
So let's get started. Hello, Glenn. Hello, Lee. How you guys doing?
Great, Dave. Great.
I'm doing great.
Great.
Thank you.
Another great podcast. And today, guess what we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about when your car does the hula when you hit the brakes.
The hula.
There we go.
So
Who's
according,
got the hoop?
yeah, the hula. It's always fun.
There
You know,
we
it keeps your driving exciting.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
know what?
and
It shakes up the
if you get a little
thing,
tired,
stirs a drink.
Yeah. Stirs the drink. Hey, that's good. That's really good. And
You don't
then
need,
No,
a,
it's
you don't need a
terrible.
swizzle stick. No swizzle stick anymore.
you don't need a swizzle stick anymore.
Just step
You
on
know,
your brake pedal.
And if you start to get a little sleepy, you step on that brake, it wakes you right up.
Everybody in the car goes on edge.
Yeah. Well, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. God, thank you, Glenn.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
brake failure is a factor in about 22% of the automobile accidents in the
Wow.
United States.
A quarter.
And
Yeah.
so when you have a lot of go
lot.
and no whoa,
Yeah.
that's a problem. That is a problem.
That is a
So
problem.
we're going to talk about that today.
There we go.
So what do you guys think about your car doing the hula?
You know, the interesting thing is sometimes people come in and say, hey, I have a vibration, you know what I mean? Or my car is shimming or it's shaking. And then we try to hone down with them on, like, when is it doing it? And of course, whenever they say, well, it generally occurs when I'm hitting the brake. Usually the next thing that will follow is it's always at higher speeds. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like when I'm getting off the freeway or when I, am trying to slow down after I've sped up, you know what I mean? And you think, boy, and they say, yeah, the car feels like it's shaking violently. And I thought to myself, wow, what a great topic. You know what I mean? Because sometimes what happens? A lot of times people, I'll turn the radio up, right? Or I'll ignore that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right?
That'll make it go away.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is there's such a variety of things that, can cause that. And some of them can be quite dangerous. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I drove a customer's car, came in, it was shaking. According to them, it was shaking, but they couldn't necessarily identify with, the brakes or anything like that. So I took it out for a test drive. And the next thing, I hit the brake and I'm in love. I'm all shook up. Yeah. It's like the car really went into a frenzy almost,
Right.
And I'm like, this had been going on. This didn't happen like yesterday. These people had to be driving this car for 4 or 5 months like this for it to get that bad.
Got the death wobble going.
Oh, it was the death wobble for sure.
Well, and one thing I want to say in our shop, and I know you guys do the same thing too. Whenever you get a customer that comes in with a noise or a vibration, what's the first thing you do? You get in that car with that customer and you go for a ride.
Absolutely.
Because how many times have we fixed the wrong vibration or the wrong noise?
Dave,
You know-
great point. Because you know what? That is so critical. And it should be something that, you know what I mean? Our clients are looking for is that, you know what? Yeah, let's get in the car. Let's go together. Let's see what your concern is.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's absolutely spot on.
Yeah. And so when a customer's driving down the freeway and then they experience that death wobble, hula, whatever you want to call it, what should they be looking for to kind of help us diagnose that car?
Oh, you know what? I love that. The first thing is as specific as they can be to try to help us understand under what conditions it's occurring. Of course, that always makes life a little bit easier on us.
Yeah.
But the other thing is really we need to probably do a little bit of a background and find out what kind of driving are you doing? Where are you traveling? Are you on mountainous roads? Are you on the highway? Are you an A to B driver? Are you a distance driver? You know what I mean? Get a little bit of understanding and awareness because, there's a variety of different things that can create those issues, from tires to bearings to, in just a lot of cases, the run out on the rotors, where they just won't be around anymore. And so they have warpage. But if we can get a little bit of background, you know what I mean, to help understand what type of driving is going on in that vehicle, it's going to make a huge difference as far as being able to pursue the diagnosis.
Right. Well, what's really important, to me, the easiest diagnostic thing that you can do while you're driving the vehicle is I asked the customer, does the steering wheel shake when you hit the brakes, or do they feel it in their butt? I mean, when the rear brakes get warped or whatever, you're going to feel the shake in your butt,
Right?
then you're going to be all shook up.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we need to identify is it front or rear, and then we're going to take and inspect all the brakes anyway. It doesn't matter. But as the brakes wear out and as the rotors and or drums, many vehicles still have drum brakes, particularly pickup trucks and so on, but your lower budget vehicles still have drum brakes on the back. And even those drums can become kind of egg-shaped.
Absolutely.
They get thin, and there's a lot of heat. And here in Arizona, where we all are, the heat is there all the time. I mean, 9 months out of the year, it's hot. So you got heat to begin with, and you're adding more heat every time you brake. That friction, that's why they call your pads and shoes friction. The friction material on there heats up, and those get hotter. And sometimes if you're braking frequently, like if you're in heavy traffic and you're braking, you're going 40 and now you're going down to 0, then you're 40 and down
Stop
to 0.
and
Your
go,
brakes are going to wear out twice as fast.
You bet.
If you're the guy who drives to California from Arizona and that's your regular route, you could go 10 years without having to change your brakes, depending again on once you get to LA, the traffic is going to kill you. But at the end of the day, it's how you drive, your driving habits, and where you drive, and you have no control over that, right?
Right.
You have a destination you have to get to. You get into heavy traffic, you're braking more frequently, the heat of the brakes, and then some people tend to ride their brakes.
No question.
You got to have a footrest. You
Yeah.
got to have a footrest for you.
I thought that was on the far left side.
Well,
of
and let's face it, sometimes, let's say when we're going on vacation or something of that nature, where you're traveling on roads that may not necessarily be familiar, or you're in a mountainous terrain or something like that. You know what I mean? You tend to be, let's call it, more cautious.
Or you're
know what I mean?
pulling a heavy trailer, or
Absolutely.
any trailer.
Absolutely.
You're adding more weight. And if your trailer doesn't have trailer brakes, guess what? That whole load is being borne on your brake pads.
We'll see. And that's the point that I'm so glad you're bringing up. Weight has a ton to do with it, because not always, you know what I mean? So let's use a specific example in braking, because, I mean, that's a staggering, statistic. 25%, 22%, I think is the actual number of accidents that occur.
There's always that margin of error.
Brake related.
We'll call it 25%.
Well, it's still close enough to a quarter where you just kind of, it makes you raise an eyebrow, And the interesting thing is, when we get the signs like you're talking about, you know what I mean? We need to get that stuff addressed and checked right away. I mean, and don't ignore it. I was kind of not trying to be funny, but sometimes people will, just kind of disregard as, oh, well, that's just a part of maybe brakes wearing out. The brakes don't have to be worn out for the car to be shimming. Sometimes you can get
brand new brakes.
Brand
Worse,
new.
they emphasize it
Absolutely.
even more. And back to your
bet.
point about weight. What you're telling everybody is
Go on a diet.
That's what you're telling them. I get it. I get it.
That's a
Lee
different kind of
said
weight.
it. We did not. Blame Lee.
You guys, I was told to belly up to the microphone. So, come on.
So one thing is you're absolutely right. Hauling a bunch of junk in your trunk probably isn't a good idea.
You bet.
But also the one thing we didn't really bring up yet is that things have changed. Over the years, how many times back in the in the 70s, 80s, 90s, did you resurface brake rotors? Because they were thick.
Right.
And the thinner the metal gets, the more they're going to warp, right?
The more susceptible they are.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So what happens is these rotors now, I mean, we could play Frisbee with the rotors. The rotors back in the day, I mean, they were heavy.
You bet.
Yeah, you kill each other throwing them at each other. But now they're so light and there's not a lot of metal to them. So almost every brake job that you do on a car anymore, you have to replace them. If you don't and you turn them down, they're going to warp, and you're going to end up having a customer come back, and now you're going to have to change the rotor. So,
and to your point, Dave, there is a tolerance. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
the rotors. It's not like you said. In a lot of cases, you know what I mean, with cars that have, some miles, let's call 100,000, you know what I mean, miles. You really got to measure those rotors, because if you cut them right down to what, let's call it the minimum tolerance.
You're going to get them back in a couple of months. They're going to be shaken.
Right. And it goes back to something that we had discussed earlier, and that is because of the experience, you know what I mean, that we know, cutting them right to the thinnest standard, that's just not good.
No.
We wouldn't run that on our own vehicles.
Well,
you know
and
what I
you
mean?
said the heat. You
That's
brought up
right.
the heat.
That's
We're
right.
in Arizona.
Bingo.
It's 115 without driving your car and causing friction.
And the hottest part of the car, people misidentify and think, well, it's got to be the engine or the exhaust manifolds. It's not. It's the brakes.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you burned yourself when you take a wheel off and you touch the thing? Oh, boy.
Yeah.
You don't
Blister,
forget that very quickly.
Yeah, it's and as the rotors get thinner, they get hotter faster.
You bet.
So having new fresh rotors on there is going to prevent the premature wear of those brakes and the inevitable replacement of those rotors.
Now, the interesting thing is we've had cases, and I'm sure we've all experienced this too. We get a brand new rotor, we stick it on there, and then the car goes out, and now we've created a problem because now all of a sudden it is shimmying. You know what I mean? We are getting all shook up, like you say, Glenn.
Yeah.
Because the interesting thing is, right out of the box, the rotor came and it had a warp.
It got
or a flaw to it.
dropped in a warehouse, dropped at the factory.
You bet.
And there's no telltale sign. It got dropped while I was in the box. The box kind of looks torn, and the tech, it tore the box, and they put it on. And unknowingly, we don't put them on a machine to make sure that they're completely true, because 99% of them are, but there's always that one.
Until there's a problem identified, then we use a machine. You can just use the run-out dials.
Right, because you can't see it with the naked eye. Like you said, you pull it out of the box, there's no way to tell.
That's right.
And let's talk about another thing that can make your car shake. You may hit a curb. You replace the rim and all the other stuff, but now what do you have? You've got something else that's wobbling in there, right? There's a hub that each of those bearings, either brake shoes or the brake pads mount on, and if that is wonky, if it's been damaged, you're going to get a wobble in there no matter how many sets of rotors or whatever. So there again, you have to use a run-out tool. It's a little digital feeler gauge that you mount. And we can watch that and see what's moving. If it's the hub that's underneath there, then you have to replace the hub, the axle, whatever is attached to that.
Well, right? and we're talking about getting all shook up here, right? With the brakes and stuff. And and then sometimes people think that they hear a noise. Yeah. And and then sometimes they hear a noise and then they feel a vibration, or vice versa. They feel a vibration and they hear a noise. And sometimes it plays tricks on us, right? Yeah. And so what happens is when you got a noise, doesn't necessarily mean you need brakes. It could be something as simple as brake dust. It could be there could be hot spots in that rotor.
Absolutely.
That we couple of hard brakings, and all of a sudden that gets superheated, and then it starts to turn blue. So we start to see those colorations, and then where the veins are, to displace the heat on there, you'll see that where that metal is, you'll actually see ribbings on there in dark blue colors.
Yeah, the discoloration.
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing of it is the most important thing is that when you start to feel that shake, right, and you feel something a little bit different in your car, you need to get it in and get it inspected. And
absolutely,
we all know, hey,
sooner than later,
brakes are a safety item. And boy, when we check over your car, and all of us, I know we do this, whenever we look over your car, that is one of the things that we hone in on and want to make sure that the brakes are in really, really good condition.
We've had several cars come in where the actual rotor, the outer part of the disc, was detached and flinging around the axle.
On a vented rotor, and they're separated.
And the pedal went to the floor.
Oh,
and the guy drove it in. One of them drove it in with using the emergency brake just to get here. Wow. And then I told him, well, you need to replace all these components, or you've ruined your calipers, because now that's been damaged by the rotor becoming detached and it was running eccentrically. So he needed all that. He says, well, I don't have the money to pay for it. I'm just going to drive it out. I said, no, you're not.
Wow.
I ended up calling the police. He says, well, I'm going to call the police. I said, please do, because if you don't, I'm going to. Yeah. And the police came out there. I said, he says, so what's the problem here? I said, sir, would you just sit in that car and push your foot to the floor? And he did.
Get behind the car and you can push it.
And I said that he plans on driving this car home or wherever he's going. I don't know how far he lives. It doesn't matter. If he lived a block away. I said to the young man, I says, look, what if you went out in the street, your emergency brake, and some kid on a bike or a lady with some babies in her stroller was crossing in front of you and you couldn't stop in time. You ended up killing them or maiming them for life. I said, can you live with that?
Well, it's like Dave said in the very beginning, all go and no slow. It's just not a good program.
Yeah, no, it is definitely not. You need your brakes, obviously, and we all know and traffic out there is not getting any lighter. It's getting more and more busy. Yeah. And the thing of it is all these things happen. If you don't have good brakes, you're definitely going to be in a bad situation that you don't want to be in.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is, there's signs. Like I say, we've all heard the noises, we've heard the squeaks, but the shimmy is something that is definitely new. You talked about some of the ways you can identify it, which is the steering wheel shimmying, especially upon braking. Sometimes you can feel it in your bottom. You know what I mean? But there's another thing, and it's not necessarily always brake related, but it's something that definitely I think we need to address real quickly, and that is the steering wheel sits there and bounces back and forth when you're just moving moving very slowly. In most cases, you know what I mean? We've got to check that tire because you've got a tire that's coming apart and separating.
At a
And-
slower
and
speed, you
at
really
a
notice
slower
it. Yep,
speeds,
yep,
And what happens? I mean, and that is about one of the most dangerous things there is on the road because
It's a
that can just
blowout
burst.
waiting
yeah.
to happen.
Absolutely.
You
And
lose
so-
control of the vehicle, it spins out, hits whatever it's in its path, and everything that's in its path is going to hit it too.
Yeah, it's funny because we become somewhat numbed. You know what I mean? When we're driving our cars every day, you know what I mean. Let's face it, nobody wants to be inconvenienced. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. We got to get to that next place.
Yeah.
We're in a hurry. We got to get here. We got to go do this. And you're 100% right, Lee. The thing of it is we neglect the thing that's going to get us there because eventually it is going to come to something that is not going to be good.
And I always would just say this, and I would like to just remind everybody: cars are tools. You know what I mean? And we use them. Boy, we use them up. You know what I mean? And we count on them. You know what I mean? To do everything that we expect. When we walk in, we expect them to turn the key and they start. We expect to put it in drive and it goes. We expect when we push the brakes, they're going to stop. We expect them to change lanes for us even when we didn't know that we were supposed to get off at that last exit. You know.
Yeah.
But the key to it is we really do ride them hard, and it's really, really valuable for us if we just keep our tools tuned up. Think about what we do every day, guys. We pick up tools and we use them. You know what I mean? And when we do, we really got to take care of our tools and our equipment. Let's do the same. Just treat our cars the same way. Let's just
Especially
make
the
sure we're taking
safety
care of them.
devices.
You bet. Because
Absolutely.
when it comes to everything that we do, the first things that we ever sell in cars are safety. Anything related to safety, we're going to ask our clients to buy those. Anything else, they can forego. But you know what? Safety, let's take care of everybody that we're sharing the road with, our loved ones, your loved ones, friends, everybody that's out there, because we owe that to one another to do that.
Right.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you end up having an accident or something happens to your vehicle, now you're in a situation where you're the liable party.
Oh,
Your
no
insurance is going
question.
to go through. I mean, there's so many things that you don't even think about.
Yeah.
What could this cost you at the end? It could cost you your life, your safety, your health, or someone else's.
You bet.
And then you're held responsible for that. You got to live with that, number one.
Tough.
And
tough.
for two, you're going to pay for it. I mean, you're going to pay through the nose. Your insurance company is only going to pay so much.
Yeah.
And you were really the culpable party that created the whole thing. So don't go down that road, folks.
You're 100% right, Glenn, and that's really heavy.
That is
it's
heavy.
one of those things that, I'm just going to say, one of the things that I really wanted to say in here. If we can catch this early enough,
Bingo.
if you bring it in
Bingo.
early enough, you can save yourself that extreme, but you can also save yourself some money.
Yeah,
Because how many
absolutely.
times have we looked at a car
Yes.
that hey, customer was in tune with the car. They said, hey man, this thing is making a noise. It's got a vibration. It's got something going on that's different than what I'm used to. They bring it in and we're like, oh, thank God you brought it in now, man. You saved yourself a ton of money.
Yeah.
And a problem and
Yeah.
a broken down car or something more catastrophic than that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the part that I love the most is exactly what you said in the beginning. Hey, can we go for a ride together, Dave?
Yeah,
Can we-
absolutely.
let's go take a look. at this.
Absolutely.
There-
Yeah.
There's
It
an
makes-
old adage that says an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Oh, and I believe that in
Came
this
from
case.
a very wise person, Albert Einstein. So, I mean, you need to think about that. Preventative is always way cheaper.
Yeah.
You want to go on the cheap? Get your car maintained on a regular basis. Do
Routine.
the stuff when it's supposed to happen.
Routine maintenance.
There you go,
Routine
brother.
maintenance.
Makes all the difference in the world.
Well, and we all preach this and build relationships.
You bet.
Build relationships with your shop. Have them be your advocate.
You
And
bet.
Lee likes to use that word, and he's 100% right about it.
Yeah.
Is you have that shop be your advocate.
You bet.
Have them, and there again, I say this all the time. I don't know everything about everything,
Right.
and I have other people that are my advocate. When
Yeah.
it's something that it's not my wheelhouse, I go to them,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I
Amen.
find those people. I build those relationships with them, and I want to make sure that whatever decisions I'm making, I'm getting the right information,
Oh, amen.
and so I can make a informed, intelligent decision
You bet.
that is good for me and good for my family and good for everybody else around me.
You
Yep.
bet.
And please pick up our next podcast. We're going to be talking about digital inspections. What does that mean? How does it benefit both the tech, the business, and mostly the customer, the consumer?
Well, I think what mostly it does is it enables the customer, you know what I mean, to become proactive in
And
their
make
car
an
repair.
informed decision.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Because like we're talking about it right here, even though we're skirting the edges, proactive versus reactive behaviors, one of them is
Way
going to
better.
save you a bunch of money.
Yeah, a bunch of money.
Another one's going to cost you a bunch.
Yeah, and
So,
time.
so
and money.
Lee, Dave, we'll talk to our customers and we'll talk to our our advocates and our listeners on the next podcast.
I like it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Hey,
Be
great to
good.
see you guys.
Take care.